The Templars were able to put all this together and start to set sail for the New World. It was to become the New World of the Americas, centuries before Columbus. The Templars began to establish trade with natives of the New World of the Americas. They began to take knowledge, their secret knowledge of the New World, back to Europe. As the Templars had been moving pilgrims to the Holy Land, they had to develop massive ships, fleets of ships, in order to move people and supplies and food and cargo to these locations. They set up ports in areas of La Rochelle in France, as well as in Portugal, and they sailed all over Europe and down into Jerusalem and into Africa. This was known history. What is lesser known is that through their discoveries of the ancient maps, they also began to develop secret passages to the New World of the Americas. Leaving from Portugal and La Rochelle in France, the Templars would sail up through Scotland, over Greenland, Iceland, down through Nova Scotia, and eventually all the way down along the eastern coast of North America, as far south as Panama. They did explorations mapping all of North America. While doing this, they established relations with a number of the tribes that were living in these areas. And they came to learn to recognize each other with a secret handshake that both sides would know. The Templars also had engaged in secret initiation rites. These initiation rites, amongst other things, involved taking a candidate and putting them through a symbolic death and raising ceremony that fell in line with their own Gnostic beliefs, where the person had to symbolically die to their old life and were raised to a new light of understanding. One of the things that they found, particularly as they traveled down into the areas of Central America, in what would now be modern Mexico today, was they encountered Nahuatl cultures. These Nahuatl cultures, which included the Mayan and the Aztec traditions in the region, had their own initiation rites and ceremonies, their own architecture. They had been building with pyramids, much like the Templars had encountered in Egypt. And so, as the Templars encountered this, they found this as proof of the ideas of this lost civilization of Atlantis that the Templars had become exposed to. Not only that, but the word that the Nahuatl cultures used for their ancient homeland was Atlan. And Atlan, they said, was an advanced civilization that they had come from that had been wiped out by a cataclysm, and that the people, the Nahuatl culture, had escaped on boats from this cataclysm and then settled in the area of the Americas. Well, it wasn't too far of a stretch to find that Atlan was a lot like Atlantis that Plato talked about. So this was quite a revelation. So even to this day, if you go and you look at the artwork of these different native tribes in the region, it is not uncommon to find the red Templar cross, equal armed cross, being used by all of these tribes because of their close association with the Templars. And while they did this, they exchanged this secret hand grip, which to this day is still being used by these native tribes and by the Templars. It's the same grip. One of the other symbols that was used by the Templars, and that you also find being used by these cultures, including the Nahuatl cultures, was the symbol of the squared circle. This symbol was to the Templars, was a symbol for the philosopher's stone of alchemy. The square represented physical reality, and the circle represented spiritual reality. And as they come together, it represented spiritualizing the material and materializing the spiritual. The same meaning for their Templar crosses that they wore on their chests. Another way of depicting this symbol of the square and the circle coming together was the implements of the square and the compasses that has now become associated with Freemasonry. In the earliest temples of Templars, including the Church of St. Sergius and Bacchus in Constantinople, where Hugh de Payens and Godfrey de St. Omar were initiated, on the pillars in this building to this day can still be found the square and compasses next to an Egyptian ankh. This alludes to this tradition that the Templars had inherited. The other symbol that was common was the symbol of the trident. This was a symbol that was associated with Poseidon in antiquity, and who was believed to be the god of Atlantis. This symbol of the trident was something that the Templars also used as a symbol. In fact, to this day, the Grand Master of the Templars has this symbol present with him when he speaks in a temple. One of the structures that the Templars built in Europe after their travels to the New World was a chapel in northern Scotland known as Rosslyn Chapel, not far from Edinburgh. Rosslyn Chapel has within it a number of ideas from the philosophies of the Templars, but some of the most important things that are found in there that is beyond the most people seems to miss is the fact that there are aloe cactus and American corn carved into the arches at Rosslyn Chapel. There's also a flower, it's a trefoil flower, which is a 3-petaled flower that can be found carved in the Rosslyn Chapel, and the only place you can find this is in North America. Not only this, if this were not enough, also found throughout Rosslyn Chapel is depicted Mayan pyramids that are carved towards the ceiling in Rosslyn Chapel. This was in commemoration of the close connection between the Templars and those Nahuatl cultures, the Mayan, the Aztecs, and others in North America. The fact that we find these things from North America carved in Rosslyn Chapel, and keep in mind, Rosslyn Chapel was completed by 1420, which was 72 years before Columbus ever sailed to the New World, gives evidence of the fact that the Templars were in fact in the New World prior to Columbus. One then asks, well, how did Columbus fit into all of this? Some have in fact accused Columbus himself as being a Templar. But in fact, Christopher Columbus had figured out that there was something across the Atlantic. He wasn't sure how to get to it. So he went to the Grand Master of the Order of the Temple. His daughter was in a convent, and Christopher Columbus pulled her out of the convent, married her to try to get the maps from her, figured out how to get to the New World. At this point, he went to Portugal, asked them to fund him to go to the New World. The King of Portugal said, well, forget it, because he already knew that there was something over across the Atlantic, because he had been protecting the Templars, and the Templars had a port there in Portugal. And so he had absolutely no reason to support Columbus. He was already working with the Templars to ensure, as they did their travel and their trade with the natives in the new land. So because of this, Columbus, in a fit of rage, said, well, fine, then I'm going to go to your enemy. So that's how Christopher Columbus ended up going to Spain. Well, Spain, with Queen Isabella, of course, she was a devout Roman Catholic, and it was already suspected that there had been holy treasures that had been snuck out of Jerusalem by the Templars and smuggled somewhere, and it was now looking more and more like they had been moved to the Americas. And so Queen Isabella figured, well, in working with the Roman Church, okay, we will fund Columbus and he will go over and he'll find these things. Sure enough, they funded Columbus. Columbus set sail to the New World. Columbus actually put on his sails the Templar cross, thinking it would fool the natives, knowing that the natives would recognize the symbol. And the rest is history. The Columbus did not treat the natives well. He was not a Templar. He was simply trying to deceive. And in fact, even in Christopher Columbus's own ship logs, he wrote about how on one of his trips off the coast of Cuba, his men had stopped at an island and they came across a group of well-armed natives that were all meeting with a bearded white European dressed in a white robe with a Templar cross on it. Things like this is evidence of the fact that the Templars were already in the Americas prior to Columbus, and Columbus was simply trying to catch up.
The only part of the story that can be verified is that there was established contact in the North America prior to Columbus setting sail. There's no evidence that he was not a Templar. He did, in fact, use their insignias on their flags for the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. The original story we were all taught in school was that he couldn't secure funding from one place and he got it from another, and that's how he was able to fund his voyage. All three of the main Abrahamic religions stem from Judaism. So when they say that the Catholics did this, or that Islam did that, or the Arabs did this, they all stem from the same exact religion.